Just last week, we were talking about how Seattle had stolen the Anarchy show from Portland, how Seattle's comparatively small production at Chaz dominated the headlines over Portland's 50-plus night crime spree that never quits. And then Portland escalated its attack on the feds, and the feds started arresting people for their federal crimes in response. And now the state is suing the feds, not to maintain the peace, but to maintain the anarchy. Oregon wants a restraining order to prevent the feds from making any further arrests within their jurisdiction. We want big government, they're usually chanting. But no, not that kind of big government. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be way different and way better when the feds are controlling your schools and your healthcare and every other aspect of your day-to-day life. But I digress. For the time being, Portland has taken back its rightful title as the peacefulest protesters to destroy a city. But don't count out Seattle so easily. Chaz may have been disbanded, but there were very few arrests. The band is back together, and now they're going on tour. Antifa Destruction and Degeneracy coming to a storefront near you. Yet another peaceful protest started in Seattle on Sunday morning. Peaceful for all of 3 hours, of course, before the destruction began. But hey, in Seattle terms, that's actually a pretty good run of peace. They marched into downtown, carrying their signs and chanting their chants.
Free them all! Free them all! Free them all! Free them all!
And I'm not even sure who they want freed, to be honest. The arrests at Chaz were minimal and, generally speaking, didn't even result in charges. According to reporting, there were 44 arrests when Chaz was disbanded on charges of resisting the dispersal and arrest, some obstruction and assault as well. But the mayor recommended no charges on these misdemeanor arrests, so as far as I can tell, those people are already free. As far as Chaz's most serious crimes of murder and just generally shooting people, of which there were at least 4 incidents, 2 deaths, something like 8 wounded, nobody's even been arrested in those cases. They've been thoroughly searching for the white hoods claimed to be responsible, but they're elusive, so maybe it wasn't KKK guys at all. Maybe it was actual ghosts. And if it was the KKK, are you chanting free them all for them too? Or is that just for your friends who commit crimes without consequence? I assume it's for the Klansmen too, since no human is illegal on stolen land. A lot of questions in the logic here. How was there theft if no human is illegal? If no human is illegal, then how was the theft illegal? And if the theft being illegal erases the legitimacy of all future crime, isn't that of benefit to your mob? You're the ones walking around committing crimes with impunity. Shouldn't you thank the land thieves of the past for erasing your criminality and making all of this possible as you march through the streets demanding respect for property rights while you violate other people's property rights? Stop. That's enough thinking. It's time to start committing the crimes for which they should all be free yet again. Don't go out to shop. That's way too dangerous with coronavirus running rampant. Just shop online on Amazon. Unless you want to start hacking away at an Amazon Go shop, that's fine too. But if you do, just be sure to mask up. Good cops quit, she says. Well, keep eating every donut in the city, and yeah, I'm sure eventually the cops will just voluntarily leave. Here's the Amazon store aftermath. Fuck Bezos, they write, I'm sure with their fair trade, non-GMO, ethically sourced spray paint. Starbucks got the same treatment, I guess giving free scholarships to anyone who complains, and turning their bathrooms into recreational overdose houses for hobos didn't save them this time. Walgreens got it too, and ironically, the toilet paper was left totally undisturbed. The trail of destruction continued to city property as well. The mob defaced the front of the municipal courthouse, as well as the police department's east and west precincts, the east, of course, being the famed facility overtaken by the Chazistani freedom fighters last month. The rioters threw rocks, bottles, and fireworks at the police, injuring 12 of them and sending one to the hospital.
The protesters then lit mortar-type fireworks and then threw them at officers from a very close range. The devices that they threw can blind, maim, and kill people when thrown from these short of distances. The result is at least 12 officers during this confrontation were injured. At least 1 officer is being treated at the hospital after fragmentation entered his neck and throat area.
They also briefly set the East Precinct on fire.
They then threw some type of pyrotechnic item into the lobby, which ignited a small fire that one of our community members put out, as I understand it.
But remember, it was a peaceful protest to start, this police spokeswoman says, in front of her mob-mandated Black Lives Matter mural.
A peaceful demonstration was held for a couple of hours.
And even that gesture isn't enough for the mob. One response to that clip on Twitter says, "Hey, pro tip for the cops. It helps to have the media relations officer not wearing a tactical loadout. Yeah, well, it also helps not to shoot fireworks at them either. But if you're going to do that, a little protection and a radio to call dispatch to say, hey, I need backup because the mob burned my face off, I think is a pretty fair compromise. Amid that mob of criminals, there were only 2 arrests on the day, one for assault and one for theft. The rest will probably disappear with that KKK shooter never to be found. And the mess will be cleaned up by the decent, law-abiding citizens of the city.
He and other neighbors grabbed a bucket and cleaning solution to remove graffiti tags on this Starbucks.
It's very sad. I believe in protests, but this has gone far past protest. You know, when you start destroying property and invading everybody else's rights.
I, as an individual, start doing something to take action here in a peaceful way, where we need to take back our streets.
I admire the initiative, though it may be naive to think that a philosophy of individual rights and responsibility has any place left in this city, but still, a couple people scrubbing with a sponge today becomes a few more tomorrow. It might be better to stop cleaning up after them and start stopping them before they make these messes instead, but I can't blame anybody who isn't eager for that legal fight either, and the sponge is surely a start. It will take this sort of individual courage and effort to change the culture in Seattle and restore the prosperity and beauty of that city. And that is exactly what one Seattle police officer pushed to his limit is requesting from the Seattle citizenry. This week, an anonymous Seattle cop shared a letter through Jason Rantz, a local radio host, explaining his fading commitment to policing and the citizen obligation to maintain a community worth policing. He describes his career of chasing criminals to keep them from victimizing you, the citizen. He describes helping a drug-addicted prostitute clean up her life and reconnect with her children. He describes rebuilding a child's broken, abandoned bike and returning it to him compliments of the Seattle Police Department. All of this done with his commitment to recognizing humanity, even in the criminals from whom he is sworn to protect you. Criminals who have nearly succeeded in trying to kill him several times. But he says after the George Floyd incident, the community has turned on him in a way they never did prior. Community members screaming in his face, telling him to kill himself, calling him an idiot, accusing him of beating his wife. He says even politicians have called him a racist killer cop, all in blame for something that happened hundreds of miles away. And these are just the words, of course. There are plenty of physical attacks against him and the rest of the Seattle PD as well. He now says he no longer believes in his mission of protecting freedom and the rights of Seattle citizens, because they don't appear to want it, and based on their treatment, don't deserve it from him. He writes, when a mob controls the city streets, those who don't agree with the mob are not free. Who's responsible for this breakdown? You, the citizens. You are allowing it. Only you can stand up against the mob or flood the city council meetings with your displeasure. Only you can influence or change the politicians to put police in position to protect your rights. You can't be afraid to speak up to politicians, and you can't outsource your protection to the police if the mob controls both the politicians and the police. In other words, only you can prevent communism, says Smokey the cop, and he's exactly right. So only 2 questions remain. What are good and decent Seattleites going to do to protect themselves when the mob controls all other forms of protection? And what is Portland going to do to steal back the headlines in the war to claim the deepest depths of the Pacific Northwest hellscape? Grab a sponge for the mess, and grab a pink polo just in case it gets messier. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter, that is at ML Christensen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.